Artificial Intelligence, Law and Justice, Session 20, AI Ethics. In this session, we will look into AI ethics and then why there is a need for AI ethics. First of all, we need to reflect upon the issues related to AI from the framework of ethics. There are a lot of ethical issues raised by AI technologies. For example, a student using AI to write a paper, but without acknowledging that he or she has used AI, and then even telling that, the paper has been written entirely by AI, he has just tinkered here and there. And also the question of self-driving car that makes decisions. The self-driving car knowingly or unknowingly can harm a person or can violate traffic rules or can result in chaos and accident. Similarly, in warfare, lots of autonomous systems are being developed, and then they have not yet fully deployed or fully used in war, but lot of work is going on. They are also called lethal autonomous weapon systems, or called LAWS. So when these things come, there is an inevitable question of ethics. Is it ethical to use them? Is it ethical to develop them? And if they have to be deployed, what sort of ethical frameworks, guidelines we would need? Again, AI itself raises a whole lot of ethical issues because people are fascinated with artificial intelligence, gentle artificial intelligence, and then the potential of GAI to reach or to surpass human intelligence. So we need a subfield in ethics that is focused on AI. But this subfield on its own cannot find things because it has to either develop from some of the earlier theories or it has developed new theories. So first question or the first problem that needs to be addressed is, how do we define AI? As we saw in the beginning itself, there are many ways to define or explain AI. So when we talk of AI ethics, we need to look for an inclusive approach so that all definitions, definitions can be taken as different forms of AI, and then they're trying to develop or they're trying to address them in one way or other. So all AI technologies, since they perform tasks using natural intelligence, again they imitate natural intelligence of the humans. So we need to have an inclusive approach over there. Then we know narrow AI is something that does a very narrow set of tasks which are assigned to them, or their capacity is limited. Whereas generative AI or general AI performs a wide variety of tasks, including creative ones. So artificial general intelligence is something that will go beyond the general AI, that will surpass the current versions of the AI, and then it will have enhanced capacity that could be as equivalent or as good as, maybe even surpass humans in the future. That's what people think. So when that happens, we will have super intelligent AI. So with the very idea or the very definition of AI, we need to look into when we talk of AI ethics, because unless we define what exactly the technology we're talking of ethics alone won't make sense. Having said that, we need to look at two or three things here. Ethics, we need to understand either one way is to have a very narrow conception of ethics or a broad conception of ethics. Narrow conception of ethics rather focus on what actions are permissible or impermissible. That is, just tell whether this is permissible or not permissible. Then what should be tolerated or not tolerated or totally prohibited. Then comes, you build up an argument either for or against one of these decisions. Why we should allow it or why we should not allow it. Why this should be forbidden or why this should not be forbidden. So this narrow conception of ethics looks practically into actions and then what is forbidden and then what is tolerated or what could be permitted. But we need to go beyond this idea because AI is not a simple technology. AI can contribute to human development, can contribute to society in more than one way. So AI cannot be reduced to a narrow idea of AI. Then we need to look at broad conception of ethics. We need to see whether how living a good human life and being a good person, how does AI contribute to it or how does AI constrain it. So we need to bring in the important values and norms and then the relation between them. Again, we need to bring in well-being and human flourishing. See, human flourishing here is, we are not talking in terms of some romantic or some poetic or some ideal way. Human flourishing here means humans having the capacity to develop themselves, to contribute good to the society. And human flourishing is used here in a very positive way so that, the society itself allows humans to flourish, their talents, it recognize them, and then the society itself permits human development of skills, capabilities and all. So it also comes with some responsibilities when society gives them. But then human flourishing can be a key term in it. So whether AI helps us to live a meaningful life and meaningful relationships is also important. But when we talk of broad conception of ethics, we will bring in living as a meaningful life and having meaningful relationships. Now, this meaningful life, it can be something which can be thought of equivalent to but not identical to Article 21's right to life. Then consider what makes certain forms of work more meaningful than other. Why we need to talk in terms of broad conception of ethics is that AI is, particularly when it comes to work, is AI is going to have serious impact on work, working relationship, job, employment, and the way society is going to reorganize or relook at the various categories of work. So when we take a broad conception of ethics, we will be able to address in a much better way the impacts of AI, and then how we can direct AI for enhancing human flourishing, for contributing to human well-being, and then for contributing to societal welfare. So this broad conception of ethics is something we need to really discuss when we talk of AI ethics. Naturally, from this, the next step would be negative and positive approaches. See, the narrow perspective again talks of only permissible, impermissible, debates on banning autonomous vehicles. And then you go the next step, question comes about who should be held liable on account of harms done by AI, and then who is really liable, and then what is that. And then this is again commonly associated with negative impacts. It is also possible that we can address some of these issues from the perspective of tort law, but not all them can be addressed satisfactorily by tort law. So the broad perspective considers AI impact on the wider human being, flourishing, societal development, and also meaningful life relationships. So the positive and negative ethical questions come in a different way. Negative looks more like forms, injustices, and responsibility, whereas the positive one looks at both the positive contribution which AI could make, and then how AI can also result in constraining or inhibiting some of the potential benefits which could arise from AI on account of the policies we have. So we need to look into a broader ethical approach so that we come out of this dichotomy of positive versus negative, or positive on one side, negative on one side, and then trying to balance, oh, this is not good, this is permissible, like that. Whereas the broader ethical approach will look into the broader questions like on what circumstances it is ethical to use AI for job displacement, or to make that people or move up in the value chain or upgrade themselves in terms of skill. Similarly, broader ethical approach will also help us to understand some of the emerging implications of convergence of AI with other technologies like biotechnology, synthetic biology, nanotechnology, and all. It is all the more important to have a broader ethical perspective, because as of now we are not sure as to what could be the potential ethical questions AI might arise in the future. Right now we are grappling with, or we are struggling with, the ethical questions posed by AI today. But only a broader ethical approach will help us to guide, understand, and then navigate the ethical challenges that could arise in the future on account of the rapid development of AI and then the capacities of AI. Having said that, we should understand two things. There are some serious responsibility gaps which we need to address too. See, technology is performing a task using intelligence is what AI primarily does. So AI is either simulating or imitating human intelligence. But when it comes to artificial agents, they may not be fully intelligent, or they may not be intelligent, or they may be with intelligence. As we saw in the earlier class, some of the chatbots may not come with any intelligence or mission, any capacity inbuilt for intelligence within inputs. They may be doing some mechanical jobs, they may be replying to some mechanical queries. But it's also possible to develop artificial agents with intelligence, with capacity to learn, capacity to respond, capacity to identify and then learn from the environment. So when those things come, the questions of responsibility inevitably comes in. So ethical questions is that tasks with ethical components, obligations, responsibilities, and then the potential gaps in responsibility also mean who is responsible when tasks are outsourced to AI. In the sense that if society decides that tomorrow AI agents are going to take care of many things which normal people would do, okay, I outsource the question of booking my ticket to AI, that is something which a normal person does, so that is not something. But when the government itself outsources some of its functions like bail boards, or some of the functions which people have to face on a day-to-day basis with some AI agents like customer service or queries, or going to hospital and then getting yourself registered, or getting the first level of consultation with AI agent, lot of responsibility gaps, lot of ethical issues arise. So these things have to be thought of, these things have to be contextualized and then understood, rather than merely addressing them as ethical issues that anyway will always be there because AI is going to raise them. So impacts and implications are very important. Let us start with something very fundamental. If AI takes over of the task which we find meaningful and then we do to earn our livelihood as well as for dignity, it could raise that, I mean, what exactly AI would impact? AI can take away a lot of jobs which people would be anyway needed. And at another level, if we are going to replace the doctor's work with medical diagnosis by AI and AI system, well, how does it matter? Some people may ask. But then the problem is that can we replace doctors and then their wisdom, their experience and expertise with AI? If so, even if it is desirable, up to what level? And then where do we bring in the doctor in the loop? Then the third question is that if some tasks are to be entirely left to AI and then the AI agents or the AI systems will care, then where is the room for human responsibility and then human engagement? If AI takes over more and more jobs, it could result in a situation that humans are made either less responsible or made as yet another cog in the wheel, or or at another small component of a larger system. So the question of whether humans are in the loop or human above the loop or where exactly humans can come in for decision making makes lot of important questions come there. And then more AI involvement reduce opportunities for human employment. Large scale disemployment in the long run is possible, and this has been a very contentious topic. But we should look at employment not from the mere economic perspective, because employment also gives people to keep themselves occupied, do some meaningful work, contribute to society, and also engage with their own skills, expertise, and then contribute. In the sense that employment cannot be reduced to mere economic factor of earning this much money uh, per month or per year for putting up this much work in terms of hours or days. So employment has got a moral component as a moral dimension. Employment has got a dimension livelihood aspect, but it goes beyond livelihood because people work not just for money, not just for that. People work because they find it somewhat satisfying. People work, often not just it enables them to earn money, but also it gives them some dignity in the society. It gives them some responsibility, and above all, it assures them that their self-respect is being recognized and accepted by the society. So, beyond employment as a mere economic opportunity, we should look at jobs and then employment in a broader way. The counter argument and such thing is that AI can really take over meaningless jobs like which humans do repeatedly and then they get really bored or they become totally alienated. And then this will means that humans can be freed up one to do much better, much meaningful jobs. Danaher in his 2019 book argues that AI can in fact act as a meaning booster, and this is something which we cannot really say totally unacceptable. It is acceptable, but then how do you use AI to boost the meaning and what circumstance also makes a huge difference. Then it's also possible that automation can enhance opportunities for meaningful human life by ensuring that automation keeps lot of things away from the people, in the sense mundane, boring, routine jobs which people do just to earn livelihood or just to do so that they can gainfully employed can be taken away from them, and then they can be given jobs that are much more satisfying, much more suitable to their qualifications and expertise. So even in a even in a matter relating to employment, there are a whole lot of issues that need to be addressed. Of course, unless we address them through the prism of ethics and then responsibility, we may not even get to know as to what questions we should ask. Then comes the tricky and challenging and interesting question of extension of human capabilities. So you know that there is a whole idea called human enhancement, post-humans, humans occurring with super capacity and all. Now, extending human agency through AI is also possible in the sense that AI can enhance our cognitive capacity. AI combined with neurotechnologies can enhance our cognitive neuro capabilities. So, if AI is going to really extend our capacities and human agency, is it ethical to allow it at all circumstances? And then, what exactly are we talking of here? Is it that AI is extending our human agency, or is AI is helping us to extend our agency, and then who is the major player here? Are we depending upon the technology to extend our agency, or is it that we choose technology and then it helps us to extend our agency with the option of whether to extend our agency or not left to us? Then AI can really help us to acquire new capabilities. I mean, whether it's a learning a language or acquiring a new skill or anything is possible. So it's possible in that way that humans can become more productive, more dynamic, more actively engaged, more knowledgeable, and then can have a better sense of aesthetics and a better sense of life. So when AI systems enhance with our interaction with the world, they can do a lot of positive things as well, in the sense that they can uh, make us to be more artistically inclined. They can stimulate our artistic thinking in us. They can train us to be more artistically sensitive to certain things and also to appreciate and then also to co-create. So AI can create meaningful and new ways of engagement, not just within us or not just with our own colleagues, fellows, and families, but also with the external world, including nature. So, in that sense, extension of human capabilities through AI per se should can be seen as a very positive, very welcome development. But of course, there are some ethical issues which cannot be wished away. Then, course, what happens to the question of intelligence and moral agency? If AI on its own operates from human agency, question is that who will be responsible is first one. The second question is that if they become truly intelligent, it can also should be linked up with some ethical obligations and rights. In the sense that can we say that AI system will have rights? Can we say that robots will have rights? Of course, they will also have some sort of responsibility. They will also have some sort of accountability to us. So, if we are going to concede that AI or artificial intelligence systems becoming really truly intelligent, then they are also ethically obligated. If they are ethically obligated, where do we stop or where do we draw the line between human intelligence and artificial intelligence? Are we going to look at they will always act as humans do, or are we going to say that we will give them, we will assign them some special rights, but we will not take them as equivalent to human intelligence? In that sense, their ethical concerns, their ethical responsibility will be something that is lesser than that of human, but more than that of an animal. Or when it comes to some robots or when it comes to some AI systems, whether should we again differentiate robots technically as something very different and AI systems as something very different? So how do we assess these things? Can we really categorize? Can we label them? Robots are better than AI systems but closer towards humans. AI systems better than animals but moving towards robots. So this sort of classification issue will always come, even if we say that AIs have intelligence, but that itself can be questioned and challenged. Then we also discussed earlier about the question of AI becoming acting on their own and moral agents. AI technology can be considered as moral agents. When we say moral agents, we mean that they have a sense of morality, they have a sense of agency, and then they have the power to act on their own. According to Floridi is one of the important philosophers of digital ethics, AI ethics, and in general, one considered as one of the top-ranking philosophers who have been working consistently on it for more than 2 decades. So he says that AI agents can have morally significant consequences, because the moment we assume that AI agents have a responsibility, and then the moment we say that they are also morally agents, in the sense that they have sense of morality, they are bound by certain norms and values, automatically their actions can have morally significant consequences. So, intelligent AI agents, when deployed in large number in systems or part of a larger ecosystem, will really raise moral agency questions. Now, the moral agency question comes not from an abstract idea, but from a practical idea. For example, an intelligent AI agent working in a health system makes a mistakes or commits a mistake that results in some harm. So, is the AI agent really capable, or is the first question that would come? Well, it is really capable, but then it did something wrong. So, question of responsibility, accountability is one. But can we really attribute moral agency to that and then prove that it willfully did it, or it did it knowingly well that the harm would happen? Or are we saying that it was cognizant of what it was doing and then it had the mental idea that it is going to do some harm? So this again is not the question of talking. We are not talking in terms of science fiction, rogue robots or those type of thing. We are talking of very real things when moral AI agents, intelligent AI agents, if deployed across different sectors, then they can also imitate intelligent behavior. But the imitation may never be the actual one. It could be something that is an imitation. So the potential for deception and manipulation of human users is possible. For example, using AI agent, I can try to deceive persons, I can try to deceive and manipulate humans' emotions, humans' sentiments, humans' understanding. I can try to make the AI agents acting in a very friendly, very casual way, and then try to steal some very sensitive personal information or try to do some harm without the other person being knowing that he or she is being harmed. It's also possible that AI agents and then AI technology per se can be used for lots of deceptions and manipulations. Of course, deep fakes are only one category of that. There are many such technical possibilities. So we need not always think that when we talk of AI imitation, deception, and then all that, it is just the question of deep fakes. It is not. There are a whole lot of things, other things can happen. For example, an AI agent may squander itself or can try to mislead a person say by stating that it represents some other organizations, whereas in fact it wouldn't be. So the potential is huge. And then if you go back to the Turing's test of whether machines are intelligent, it if machine can mimic human interaction, we can say that machines have intelligence. But what happens if AI agents are also able to mimic human interaction and then convince a human that the other end person is also a human? In the sense that what happens if AI agent mimics a human and then convinces that you are talking to not to an agent or not to a system but a human in the other end? So these are the questions that come when we talk of intelligence and moral agency. Of course, all this also comes with the big issue of control. As to where does the control lie or where the buck stops. Concerns about AI performing above human level have always been expressed. In fact, whether it's Isaac Asimov's robo rules or any of the most of the things that particular to discussions on AI ethics in the context of moral agents or AI ethics doing rogue things, we always questions again is control problem as to who controls. Is the technology or the AI agent can come with the control mechanism that can also be inactive or active depending upon the moral choice? Then the controlling the super intelligent or generative AI is again an issue because we have seen repeatedly the black box problem, but that is only one aspect. The other aspect is the moral responsibility aspect. And then even narrow AI applications raise control concern as to are humans in control or are humans part of the loop or are humans are somewhere but then they have no control over it or humans can intervene only some circumstances where AI has taken a decision but only to mitigate the harm. So historically, Turing early worries about AI control in 1950 is there. Then Norbert Wiener wrote extensively about some of these issues in his book. Then came Joseph Weizenbaum, who also came up with his book Computer Power in the Age of Human Reason. And then he also developed a chatbot, earlier chatbot called Elisa, which his secretary believed that is a equivalent to human being and was misled. So if you look at it, right from 1950s onwards, right from the days of Turing, right from the beginning of discussions on artificial intelligence, some of these ethical questions have been raised again and again, sometimes in a very narrow specific way, sometimes in a broader way. Persons like Joseph Weizenbaum, Norbert Wiener raised very broader questions, very broader issues, in the sense that they did not think in terms of mere AI. They thought broadly in the terms of how society should interact and how society and the technology relationship should be guided or should be governed. So some of these concerns keep on repeatedly appearing, not because they were raised earlier, but because they are becoming more pertinent now. Then the question of aligning AI with human values, this some of these things has got a lot of things to do with the whole idea of responsible AI as well. So the technical and then the ethical challenge here is that how do we ensure that AI systems respect and then support human values? What are the human values? It could be like transparency. It could be not being a black box. It could be like we would see in the case of AI ethics discussion. We will look at some of the things where we will specifically look into some of the specific values also in that. So the normative challenge of deciding which human values to align with is also there. Again, this is a problem because there is no accepted or consensus on what exactly are the human values and which one among them should be prioritized. And then depending upon the school of philosophy, depending upon the school of ethics and other things, these things vary. Now, there is a whole lot of existing technologies out there. These ethical questions are also arise in them. But in the case of AI, there are a lot of things which are very specific because we have a lot of assumptions, and then discussing people's perception about AI's capabilities, AI ethics is also equally important. But we need to also have some foresight and then think what sort of technologies might evolve and what sort of ethical issues they may arise in the future. So it is also better to be prepared or to be at least cautious on these things so that we know these are some of the potential ethical issues that could arise in future on account of the development technology. So we need to look at things here two perspectives. One, there are a whole lot of ethical issues on the existing technologies, including AI. So we need to learn a lot from those debates and then those discourses. Say on biotechnology, on human genome editing, on synthetic biology, on nanotechnology, like that. So we also need to draw a lot of insights from them, but also look into some specific things that are very unique to AI. Because we are not saying that biotechnology on its own will have this some of the problems of AI, whereas AI on its own will have the problem of moral agency and then responsibility that arise on account of moral agency. And then if we talk of in terms of AGI, AGI might be developed with technologies. So, and super intelligent AI is a very controversial but somewhat challenging notion. And then future AI we saw. So there are a lot of people have worked on it. But one of the things which keep up again and again is that what happens if AI becomes sentient beings? Now, if AI results in within quote sentient beings, should we be should they be treated as beings that are equivalent to things with life, with a sense of morality, with a sense of mind, or should they be treated as yet another missions with which are little more than missions, but not as good as the beings, human beings, or anything that is alive? So David Chalmers is one philosopher who has worked extensively on sentient AI. So it is also possible that AI may evolve into potentially intelligent agent. As we have seen, Turing's early reflection was there, but then if you go back, Aristotle's thought on intelligent tools and human labor is also important. So, starting from Greek days of Aristotle, there has also been a lot of discussion on technology and philosophy, technology and ethics, also on how does society should deal with technology when ethical issues arise. So there are a lot of people who have worked on it. For example, Heidegger has written a lot about it. And then coming to our terms, we have at least a dozen or more philosophers who have devoted themselves to addressing some of the things relating to emerging technologies. So whether it is existing technologies or emerging technologies like AI, there is a whole lot of philosophy of technology, ethicists working on it, philosophers and other social scientists are trying to address them from various perspectives. When yet we talk of AI ethics, we need to draw from the insights of their work. And then the future of AI also we need to take into account. So we can do one way, we can look at the past solutions and then identify where, I mean, some of them have worked, some of them have not worked when we talk of ethics in technology. But it is also possible that some of the things which we talk of today as super intelligent AI or AGI may be hype in the sense that there is no guarantee that AI will continue to evolve and progress at this level. There could be technical issues, there could be other issues that at some point AI may plateau or may not go further for one reason or other. I mean that that also we cannot predict now. So the future of AI we need to really look into. And then what happens artificial human intelligence which share similar boundaries. So if you are talking of human intelligence as a paradigm and then compare that with artificial intelligence, that is one way to do that. Other way is that you look at intelligence and then say, okay, we know we are talking of intelligence. Since we are talking of intelligence, we will first not bring in human as the paradigm. We will talk in terms of what exactly is intelligence about. Then we will independently assess AI as well as humans on that parameters, than taking us humans as the primary one to assess AI's intelligence. So there are many ways of addressing these questions. Then the boundary between human intelligence and artificial intelligence, whether they will merge when AI systems merge with our some of the controls which we have, or when AI systems are integrated into our thinking and decision making, in the sense that if we all become cyborgs who also operate with AI systems, then the question will be totally different. So these are some of the things which AI ethics comes to grapple with. In particular, in comes to ethics in legal, we know to know purpose of law is to compensate errors for misfortune, and then ensure that the wrong actions are not continuously done, or they are not disincentivized or decided because of the social order we need to be maintained. What would happen if AI or any technology creates a massive havoc or creates lots of harm, in the sense that suppose you have driving autonomous vehicles, and then if they cause at least 100 accidents here and there in a city on account of their behavior, then it could be something of a social order problematic. So that also need to be addressed. Of course, law has been designed to hold humans accountable. When it comes to animals, we don't hold them as accountable, but the owners. So the whole lot of tort jurisdiction or tort jurisprudence stems from that, from some of those ideas. Similarly, corporation can be held accountable for human control, although corporations are recognized as artificial persons or juristic persons. So AI systems, so far we will not been, or we have not been able to extend that rationale and then say that they are accountable like humans. But sooner or later, this question has to be come to grapple with. So law on one hand evolved with human capabilities, human services, human societies, and then human aspirations, and then human wishes. But when law is to deal with AI, this can be a necessary starting point, that taking humans based our experiences in the past and then assessing as to how we will law and AI has to be really looked into. But that alone is not sufficient, because we cannot extend by nature or by default whatever humans does to AI and vice versa. So having discussed all this, now we should get into something that is where it makes a difference. UNESCO's AI ethics, or UNESCO's recommendation on ethics of artificial intelligence, is the first, or perhaps what I would call as the most important ethical principles described and then accepted by all the countries in the world. UNESCO started this work much earlier for the simple reason UNESCO has been working on ethical issues relating to technologies and then science for many, many years. So in 2019, they came up with this UNESCO ethics principles, and then they came further developed that with guidelines, and then they also did lot of work on taking them to the concept of legal law principles and then rule of law. So we need to look at the AI ethics, because this is something which everyone has accepted. But then as we see, it is not something that everyone has accepted, so the problems have been solved. No, it is not like that. So broadly, UNESCO AI ethics has these principles: proportionality and do no harm, safety and security, fairness and non-discrimination, sustainability, right to privacy and data protection, human oversight and determination, transparency and explainability, responsibility and accountability. And comes awareness and literacy, multi-stakeholder and adaptive governance and collaboration. So based on this, UNESCO's AI ethics has been identified into 11 policy areas, where UNESCO come up with ideas and suggestions so that the AI ethics can be translated into actionable points and actionable agenda, or can be integrated or can be made part of the national ethics frameworks as well as the governance frameworks for AI. But there are things which we need to understand about UNESCO's AI ethics. First of all, it is a soft law instrument. It does not have the backing of a hardcore AI treaty or AI convention or AI agreement. As a soft law instrument, it is not binding on the countries to abide by it or to implement it as prescribed by UNESCO at all times. And then being a soft law instrument, one cannot go to court or one cannot sue UNESCO if someone else violates this, or one cannot go to court and then say my country has ratified or my country has accepted AI ethics but has not implemented it. And more importantly, problem here is that it is very comprehensive. It's accepted by states, and the UNESCO is also working with all the nations to bring them into policy arena, to bring them as part of the AI governance, and particularly in law and justice. But the other side is it is very difficult to implement, particularly when values and priorities vary. For example, when we say awareness and literacy, multi-stakeholder governance and collaboration, these may look very fine. But certain things like transparency, privacy, these are contested values. And then not all countries have very similar value system for privacy and then transparency and accountability. Why? Because one, there are cultural differences. Two, there are a lot of differences in the way the country's laws and policies, and then the overall governance frameworks look some of these things. In some countries, privacy may be a cherished value, but then that again will not help the person when the state itself violates the privacy of a person. So, how to translate privacy from an absolute value into something that is workable is a big question. But if we talk of global AI ethics, challenges are how to connect global AI. Debate on what constitutes global is also equally important because it is very easy to say global AI ethics. But what is global? Particularly when AI policy systems are at the national level. And then you need to always look at the contextuality and then historically than to mere talk in terms of abstract things. More importantly, we need to look at the power relationships, the rationality between the actors, and then the comparison. And more importantly, AI ethics can be something that is global, broadly thing, but what exactly are the local perspectives? Do the locals, do the different countries, different stakeholders entirely agree with the UNESCO's AI ethics principle, and then are they, and even if they agree, or the understandings are the same and identical, then the question. As there are huge differences among countries in social, cultural, political, institutional, positionality, and values, somewhere talking of abstract AI ethics as enunciated by UNESCO or any agency, and then trying to say that this will be always applicable in all contexts will be a meaningless exercise because that will never happen. Instead, countries will try to choose and pick and then identify where they can accept it in full. Where they cannot accept it in full, they will try to pick up something but then try to negate it or try to mitigate it in one way or try to ensure that what is stated there is taken into account but not implemented fully. So the universal values which could be again questioned needs to be contextualized, have to be balanced somewhere. How to balance this is again a big question because who will decide as to what should be balanced and what values should be prioritized. So the questions here are lack of clarity, ethical principles mean different thing to different organizations, and then translating this into actionable points. For example, how will you translate this into ideas like responsible AI, explainable AI, or into drafting laws or into governance principles? And then guidelines is not, there are not many guidelines and in releasing them. And then although UNESCO's AI ethics principles look very nice in paper, how do we link them with the AI governance is not very clear, it is very vague. And UNESCO as an organization has doing lot of things relating to AI ethics, AI governance, AI and human rights and all. But many of the things that should happen at the national level or left to the national governments, where the understanding of that, the practice of that may be totally different from what UNESCO would have envisaged. So the linkages with governance is vague or it is not clear. This does not mean that UNESCO's AI ethics are useless or they are too vague or too difficult to implement. Rather, the problem is translating them into actionable points and then putting them into specific laws and then rules. So another point which has been discussed in the literature, I have given the relevant literature in the end. Today, since there is a whole lot of thing talking about AI ethics, there is a view that AI ethics has ultimately been reduced to just ticking the boxes when you ask questions and then say nice things done, or you raise some nice slogans and rhetoric, because there is no binding legal binding for it. So the question of translating that doesn't come, in the sense that you can simply tick boxes. You can simply say that we have been aware of the AI ethics principles. We are trying to incorporate it in our working without doing anything. And then the overlap with the responsible AI is there, but then the linkage between them is not very clear, or it is quite vague. So the ambiguity in the AI ethics does not mean that AI ethics are not relevant. The ambiguity in AI ethics stems from the fact that AI ethics is being either reduced to ticking the boxes, or it is not taken serious enough to translate into actionable points and then getting incorporated into various policies and frameworks. So if it is part of soft law, it's acceptable. But if it is part of regulation, then it becomes all the more difficult, because which one to choose, how to incorporate, as I said, is a difficult thing. For example, if it's a question of transparency as AI ethics, how do we translate that? Should it be part of the data protection regime alone, or should it be part of the broad AI governance framework? The EU Act is the nearest one that comes to address some of these things in a comprehensive way. But then not all countries have a comprehensive regulation or a comprehensive act or a system to govern AI. So the problem is that AI ethics, even if it is recognized, may not get fully included in the part of regulatory framework or governance. It could be more like a guideline and may start and stop with that. Again, there is a serious lack of indicators, standards, and assessing policies and institutions. In the sense that there is no metrics to assess as to whether AI ethics have been translated by a country, or how do we assess the various things that are claimed in the name of AI ethics. So this is the literature which I have given. There is a very interesting journal called AI Ethics from Springer. It has lots and lots of very useful information. I have cited only very, very limited literature here, because the literature on this is exploding, and I said we need to start from the days of Aristotle, also look at philosophy of technology, and then a whole lot of other literature on it. So we will stop with AI ethics in this. In the next class, we will extend this discussion into AI ethics in law and justice. Right now we saw is the broad common principles, what is AI ethics, why there is a need for AI ethics, and then how UNESCO's AI ethics addresses that. But then what are the problems in making AI ethics workable in different contexts? We will take this forward by looking at this thing, AI ethics in law and justice, and both in the sense that how AI ethics can be translated in law and ethics, or has it been really translated into law and justice, we need to really look into.